guys, it's Bailey. Welcome back to the channel and thanks for tuning in to today's video, which is going to be a follow-up to I think what is like the #3 most viewed video on my channel. It has like a couple 100,000 views. So it was something that a lot of you guys and I guess other people looking for this topic were really interested in. And I've since gotten a few comments more recently asking for a follow-up since it is a few years old. It's all about matte eyeshadow, specifically matte eyeshadow palettes and the best that are currently out there. Now when I went to go back and take a look at that video to see what I had picked and what's changed since then, like what palettes are still available, a lot of my higher end non-drugstore picks are still in production, available and out there for you to pick up if they look good to you. So if you're interested in more than what I talk about in this video and you haven't yet seen that video, definitely go give it a watch. But this video is going to be focused on the more affordable slash kind of drugstore end of things because a lot more has changed in that landscape since I made that video a few years back. In fact, it's changed so much that as I was pulling stuff from my collection, I always make sure that things are available before I make the video to make sure I'm not talking about something that was discontinued. And in the time since I made that first video, things have been created and then since discontinued, and some really good options too, which is kind of a bummer. So it's just crazy how quickly things come and go here in the beauty industry. But that's besides the point. Let's just go ahead and dive in and start talking all about my favorite matte drugstore slash more affordable eyeshadow palettes. First, let's talk about what is on my eyes today and what is probably one of the newest palettes to the drugstore. It's one I recently picked up from Revlon. It's their new Color Stay Insider palettes. And as I was looking at the new display, I picked up a few of these, but I immediately was drawn to this one because it's all matte. And although there are a few more all matte options out there, it's still pretty slim pickings. Like there isn't a lot, so snagged this while I could. And it turns out, I mean, it's not a perfect palette. I'll talk about some of the things that I wish were a little bit different in here, but for the most, I mean, the quality is entirely there. And I'll show you a demo of this so you can see it applying, just so you can understand what I'm talking about when I'm referencing the quality. Because these colors are really smooth and evenly pigmented. You can see they glide on really nicely without skipping or applying patchy or unevenly, which is something that can definitely happen with matte formulas. And so that's not the case with these. I will say the lilac, which is I thought was kind of an interesting addition to this palette, is kind of satiny. Like I don't know that I would call this entirely matte. There's just like a hint of satin to it, and that might be what keeps it kind of buttery feeling because purples can be a little bit trickier to pull off, but it is an almost entirely all matte palette and a good one at that. Now the things that I would change are over here in this lighter, well, first of all, let's talk about the size of the pans. These are so tiny, and I didn't realize it until I actually got it home and went to go stick a brush in it. The one that I use today is this dual-sided one from IT Cosmetics. It's the Heavenly Luxe, has an all-over brush on one side and a smudger brush on the other. I love this kind of fluffy shader brush to really pack on but also buff in shadow. So that's what I used here today, and the trick is that you really just have to like use one single edge of it, and if you do that, it picks up a good amount of product. You're not getting into all the other shades, but it certainly takes some working with depending on the kinds of brushes you typically like to use. Like this will have to double as my crease brush. I can't go in with something, like this by comparison because it's only ever going to get on one side of the brush and lead to an uneven blending of colors. You really have to work with something a little bit flatter so you just get better placement in the pan. So that's something that you have to work with. I really wish they would have just made these pans a little bit bigger, and they could have done so by eliminating some of these or the lighter shades. It's like there are 3 super close shades, one slightly pink undertone, which I put on my inner corner today, but the other 2 are like identical cream shades, and they're just not necessary to have all 3 of these in one palette. So I would have liked to see either, like I said before, bigger, like kill 2 of those shades and make these pans bigger and give more product of each shade, or add some variety, add some maybe more colorful shades or some burgundies or navy, something like that, just to add a little bit more depth and interest to this palette. It's a great neutral palette as it is, but yeah, I just would have liked to see a little bit more variety over here. But all that said, if you're looking for a neutral matte basics from the drugstore that is good quality and that you can actually go in store to pick up, because a couple of these things you have to order online or just a little bit harder to find in person, this is a good option for you. Now let's talk about a pick from Makeup Revolution. This is the Reloaded Basic Mattes palette. And when I first saw, I picked this up at Ulta so I could actually see it in person. And when I did, what intrigued me most about it was, I mean, tell me if it's not just me, but when I saw this, it reminded me a whole lot of, that is a dirty case. Let me open this so you can better see it, of the Viseart Deep Mattes palette, which I recently used and kind of brought back to life in a fall tutorial using the oranges and greens. Such a pretty look. But the two kind of struck me as being similar. Granted, the Revolution is not nearly as bold. I mean, it's pigmented for what the shades are, but it just doesn't contain nearly as much pigment as it is in this palette. But overall, the color palette is very similar in that it contains those mustard shades, couple of those berry purple shades, green, this kind of green shade right here. Very, very similar in case you see something like this and this color palette strikes you. Once again, the pigment is really, really nice across all of these shades as well. They don't skip when they apply. They're not chalky at all. They're very nicely and evenly pigmented. But as compared to something like this Revlon palette, you obviously get more product, more variety in the shades, and you even get to start playing with some colors here in these deeper berry tones and purples, even this mustard and some of these greeny shades in here. It's just a little bit more variety. That said, because I love the deep mattes from Viseart so much, I do wish they had put some kind of stronger punches of color in here, but that might not be, you know, someone's everyday color pick, and so this might be more of a better everyday palette for someone who's looking for an all matte selection and wants a little bit more variety. Oh, I probably should have mentioned this next one at the top of the video because it's a repeat from that original video, but it's still around and kicking and it's still good, so I figured it's definitely still worth including in here in case you don't want to go watch that first video. It's the Morphe 35N palette. This is just a massive neutral matte palette. I mean, you get some color in here with like this baby pink, burgundy, but for the most part, it's overwhelmingly neutral and you get a whole lot of selection here. So I mean, everything still stands that I mentioned in that original video, and it's worth picking up if you just want a ton of different matte shadows to choose from at a pretty affordable price given the amount of product you get. And of course, what would an all matte shadow roundup be if we didn't talk about the e.l.f. Mad for Matte series? So there is, of course, the original Mad for Matte palette that started it all. It is a very classic selection of neutral brown tones and smoky grays over here. Then they expanded with the Mad for Matte 2, which leans a little bit more warmer, incorporates more pinks and berries. But the reason I specifically wanted to talk about this series is because at this point, this is probably the best selection of bright mattes that is going to be out there at a more affordable price point. And that is with the Jewel Pop palette, which if you are ever going to purchase some mattes, this is so gorgeous. This is where you're going to get some of those like dark matte equivalents, like with this orange shade, these gorgeous deep berry shades, even a bright blue and green if you're into it. But you know, would I wear all these together? I mean, you could totally make a more wearable look wearing all these together, but I really love this because you can pull in some of these brights into your other looks, even if you're combining them with shimmers, but you just don't see like a bright blue matte every day or a vivid orange matte every day, and you get them all in this palette and without breaking the bank. So this is probably my favorite all matte palette from e.l.f. So my last pick almost didn't make it into this video because I don't have as much experience with the mattes from this collection, but I thought it was worth mentioning in case you want to give them a try for yourself. So Essence, available at Ulta and online, but they have the My Must-Haves palette, and it's basically a 4-pan customizable palette that you can get from them. Here I have 4 shades, this really pretty deep it's a satin / shimmery plum, this intensely metallic silver shade, this matte shade, which is what I'm going to talk about now, and then this kind of shimmery or satin bronze shade over here. But my point with this is that you could create your own all matte eyeshadow palette, all matte quad if you wanted to, but the only experience I have with the mattes from this collection is this one in number 1, Hello Sunshine. So, you know, again, let us know if you have tried this and you have more mattes from them. Let us know what you think of them in the comment section below. But for the sake of variety and just this interesting concept of customizing your own matte palette, I wanted to include it in this video, even though, you know, I can't really speak to all the matte shades, but I do really like how this one in Hello Sunshine performs. And those are all of them. Those are all of the more affordable matte palette picks. Let me know if I'm forgetting any down in the comments below. Hopefully this gave you a few more options to consider if all matte is your thing, or you're just looking to dip your toes into it so you don't want to go for like a Viseart or something like that. Hopefully this gave you some more options to choose from. Let me know what you think in the comments. Besides that, guys, thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and I will catch you in the next video. Bye, guys.